Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I'm also very happy to be in my country, Bon dia, Valencia. And I also want to thank you and the festival, all the team at C-Square, for supporting the media industry. We needed this, and we thank you for continuing also in the hard times. So, Steve, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Nice to be in Valencia.
Nice to be in Valencia, right? What did you think of the session, of the initial? What do you think of Fernando's speech, for instance? He was talking about the economy, the consumption, the credit crunch. Zenith is well known for the forecast on advertising spending. What do you have to say about it?
I think, I'm sure over the next couple of days there'll be lots of disagreements about various things that we're going to hear. I think the one thing we're probably all agreed on, I'm sure that's unilaterally everybody is concerned about the economy, and certainly, as you say, that we've been conducting quite deep analysis of media trends really for 20 years, and I would agree entirely with Fernando's macroeconomic assessment of the economy, and particularly how it affects the media environment. We've just released some new forecasts last week, and globally we're predicting something very close to a 7% decline year on year. And that's actually slightly more negative than the other two key main protagonists, both WPP and Aegis. And the interesting thing is, of course, those forecasts include online and offline, so it's a compendium of the two. And
could you be more specific, the online and the offline, and by geography maybe?
By geography, I think we're seeing, I don't think anybody would be surprised, the markets where we've taken our forecast down most dramatically, no surprise, the US, Spain here, the UK, lots of Western Europe and some of the southern countries of Europe. I think everyone expects that, but we're now seeing that the Asian markets we're reducing our forecast there, although there is still some growth in China and India. Still some growth, you'll be pleased to hear, in some of the LATAM countries. It's a general trend, and some really quite horrific stories appearing, for example, in some of the Central Eastern Europe markets. Those of us dealing in Russia will know of this sort of quite biblical decline there. So it's a very mixed picture, but one that unilaterally is really showing a decline. And in terms of the split between media,
online, yes.
It's, we're actually seeing, to the points that Hanan was made, actually television is actually going to grow in share, which is interesting. No one will be surprised that print, those forecasts are deteriorating more dramatically, particularly in print. And I think in newspapers it's really quite a difficult story to see how the situation is going to evolve positively, with a reduction in subscriptions, readership, circulation, and most dramatically in terms of advertising, particularly in the classified side, where the impact of the internet has been most aggressive. The internet forecast, I think, for search generally are holding up pretty well, but in display, rich media, video is the forecasts are really also quite dramatically down. Fernando said at the beginning that there was perhaps some green shoots of recovery, and I think that we may be beginning to see those, particularly, most interestingly, from the US, huge consumer of goods and services, and certainly you obviously live in the US, so I'm interested to hear what you think. But I mean, certainly, it's a much more positive economy. I think they've been in recession for longer. I think the new government and the fact that I think people are believing that there is the will and the means to try and change things around. Yes, we can.
Yes,
so I think if the US can begin to see some green shoots, I think some of the Asian markets and LATAM do have the potential. They're very much more robust. They don't have quite the same structural issues that in the West. I think you'll see those dragging. If the US can come out, I think we might see a slowdown in the decline towards the end of this year. But I think, as Fernando said, I would agree that some of the Western markets, such as here and some of the other markets in Europe, are going to take longer to come out, because the problems are not just short-term economic ones. I think the whole
very profound,
profound, and I absolutely agree with some of the way this is going to change consumers, the way they think about consumption, the way they think about spending money, the whole sustainability of goods and services, and I would agree very much with the findings of the research that you did.
Yeah, and what Lord Putnam was telling us yesterday over dinner was very, very similar to that, yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because last night we both saw a very interesting speech from Lord Putnam, who was talking about sustainability and this huge issue, and as Fernando said, it's like the aliens are here. And interestingly, while the bankers are sort of derided from having brought down almost the whole capitalist structure, you could say actually single-handedly what they've done is they've actually helped make the single biggest change in terms of the improvement of sustainability by virtually single-handedly slowing down the growth, staying down global production, and shutting down a third of the factories in China. So maybe in long term, the bankers will be seen as somebody who saved the world. So. I mean, maybe from there, from our forecast, one of the areas we see that Jean-Charles will be pleased about is outdoor, which has that ability in terms of mass and digital. What did you think of that speech?
I totally agree. I mean, I have not seen your latest forecast, but I totally agree. I loved Jean-Charles' presentation when he was saying out is in, and outdoor is innovation. I like that even more. And I think it's not only a claim. I think we are seeing that outdoor is a very innovative media, which makes me happy because for many years we have thought that all the innovation, all the new things would come from the internet only, and seeing the oldest medium in the world at the forefront of innovation, I think is a very, very hopeful and interesting turn in our classical beliefs. We have seen that in the festival also. I have had the honor of being one of the jury members, and we have seen very interesting outdoor cases, a lot of flexibility, a lot of possibilities, a lot of abilities to measure the return on investment. And that's good news for the industry, good news for us as agencies, and good news for our clients, because the things that are available through this medium are numerous. And not only in terms of getting to the consumers, getting your message to the consumer, but Jean-Claude was mentioning it also, the service. If you bind that with the sustainability, and sustainability is not only about the environment, but it's about the community, it's about the society. Outdoor is a medium that is enabling the brands and the advertisers to get closer to the community in a good way and contribute to what they are doing. Something else that is very interesting and that digital brought to us is the need to be closer also geographically to the consumer. And outdoor is allowing that. So I think it's fulfilling several of the requirements that we have today at the same time, and in a fantastic way, and a lot of innovation. So Jean-Claude, congratulations to you as a company, but to your entire industry, and I use you as the representative today. So what did you think about the other two presentations? Do you think there were any commonalities? Because there was very different styles, very different approaches between Hernan and Anko Saraiva. And what did you take? What's the common themes, maybe?
I think it's interesting because I think they both talked about the crossover and connectivity between, let's say, TV and online. And I think probably for both of us, I think we absolutely see that they're integrated and connected, and their futures are very much interconnected. They are media which are actually growing. We talked economically. Many of our clients and many of our advertisers are seeing huge falling demand for their goods and services. The reality is that the demand, the amount of time people are spending on the internet, the amount of time people are actually watching TV is actually increasing, and it's increasing virtually in every market in the world. So, we should remember when we talk about this sort of macroeconomic environment that we're in, that actually both medias are actually marked by their success. They are drawing in more eyeballs, more people, more time. So you've got increasing supply. There are also medias where the consumer is increasingly becoming in control, and whether we see that the ability to use the internet to become their own editors, or in terms of television, where we see the ability to actually have time-shifted viewing again. The consumers are becoming their own editors. And thirdly, we see that they are both media where technology is wroughting enormous change. And the way that the media is changing, the explosion is happening across both. So that's quite a positive situation. However, I think out of that, we've also got some challenges. I think they talked about, I think it was Hernan who talked about the barriers to entry are low, and that's the case. You just look at the explosion of television channels around the world. And in every market, whether we look at markets which have been in competition, like in the US for over 50 years, or some of the faster growing markets like in the East, where you've maybe only got deregulation of television for maybe less than a decade. In all cases, we're seeing an explosion of of channels. And so what we're seeing is a situation where you've got this situation where the supply and demand equation is leading to a reduction in price, and that's quite dramatic. And of course, you say, well, is this business model sustainable in its current format?
Absolutely.
Because if the absolute price is going down, and at the same time, this whole thing about giving content for free, and you begin to say, actually, if we were starting this business model now, we wouldn't actually be where we are. We'd want to be in a different place. And while I absolutely agree that I think the online and the TV is very much interconnected, I think this challenge of trying to get how do you monetize this content, and how do you deliver rich audiences who are engaged by your product, it's the same whether it's online or on TV. And you've just sat through, I know, some of the entries, and I'm sure that for when we're talking to advertisers, we do not differentiate increasingly between TV and online. If it's a great idea, and Anne showed the terrific mini campaign, for example, that's a campaign that lives and breathes and is expanded and developed online and on TV and in different forms of electronic delivery. Yes. And I think for us, that's something that we're going to increasingly see. That digital integration and connectivity between the two medias is something that's going to grow. And
it's something that is natural, right? It's something that is
absolutely. And I think what has grown television is because it's been about terrific content. Yeah. And I think whether it's the content on the developer of Big Brother or new programming, I think it's, in this market, in terms of those supply and demand, I think the people who are going to have a real differentiation are people who develop, own and distribute that content. Mm-hmm. And that whole issue, I think, about giving it away for free is, I think, over the next couple of years going to be into wrought exposure.
Yeah, I like the meaning with, I don't know who you talked to this morning, Hernán, but I'm sure he told you what you say. He told you, I want money for my content. Yes, yes.
Yeah.